Elijah Snow's final day alive started out early. He and his wife of 10 years, Jamie Snow, got up at 3 a.m. for a flight to Cancun out of Dallas, Fort Worth, Texas. They had enjoyed vacations to Mexico in the past and were looking forward to a relaxing vacation on this gorgeous beach. They were celebrating their 10th anniversary with a trip to a fancy, all inclusive resort, but this catastrophic vacation will be anything but relaxing. And by the time the sun rises after their first night there, tragedy will have struck. What sort of tragedy? Well, it's hard to say. None of the explanations make much sense, and the evidence, what there is of it, doesn't really add up. Was it murder or drunken misadventure? With cultural differences and language barriers, missing footage, and Mexican bribes, it's total confusion in Cancun. What happened to Elijah Snow? The Snows landed in Mexico at around 10 o'clock that morning, July 18th, 2021, and they took a cab the short distance to their resort, an adults-only five-star hotel, the Royalton Chic. It was too early to officially check into their room, but resort staff held their luggage and gave them each a bracelet that provided access to guest facilities like the restaurants, the pools, and all-inclusive bars. Excited to get their anniversary vacation started, Elijah and Jamie took some pictures on the beach and the resort grounds, documenting the beautiful locations where they planned to spend the next week relaxing and connecting as a couple. Next, they headed out to the pool where they socialized, sipped on margaritas, and soaked up some warm summer sunshine. By 4 o'clock that afternoon, the Snows were able to get into their room. There, they changed clothes before returning to the pool for more drinks ahead of their 7 p.m. dinner reservation at Chopstick, an on-site restaurant at the resort. There, the two enjoyed a la carte Asian cuisine and shared a bottle of sake. Following dinner, the couple snagged martinis at the nearby cocktail lounge before deciding that it was too noisy and heading down to the lobby bar. By this time, Jamie was exhausted. It had been a long day of travel and alcohol. Up at 3 a.m., and by the sounds of it, at least 8 hours of off and on drinking under the hot, hot sun. I'm not surprised that she was ready for bed by 9 p.m. that night. And whether it was the fatigue or all the booze, something caused a slight rift between Jamie and Elijah that evening. It's unclear exactly what was said. Jamie's father-in-law called it a minor argument. It sounds like Jamie may have been ready to go back to the room and get some rest, while Elijah wasn't quite ready to call it a night yet. Father-in-law David Ushke said, quote, "Jamie grew tired, and he said, 'I'll stay down here and have another cocktail,' unquote." Back home, Elijah Snow worked as a firefighter. And as a firefighter, he was used to keeping late hours and staying up for extended periods of time. Jamie, on the other hand, a special education director, not so much. But still, as she leaves the lobby bar to go to their room, she expects that Elijah won't be long behind her. She expects that he'll finish his drink and be right up soon after. However, that minor argument will turn out to be not so minor in the grand scheme of things. If only Elijah had gone to bed with Jamie. That disagreement marks the last time that Jamie Snow ever sees her husband alive. 35-year-old Elijah Snow was described by his wife as not just one of the good guys, but, quote, was without a doubt the best guy. Growing up, Elijah had always wanted to help others. He had dreamed of being a firefighter for as long as he could remember. His father, Ronnie Snow, had been a firefighter and had died during a training accident before Elijah was even born. This is a picture of Elijah and his mother honoring Ronnie when Elijah was just 9 years old. Eventually, Elijah's mom remarried his stepdad, David, who was also a firefighter as well as an EMT. Elijah grew up in Arlington, Texas, and loved to play soccer. He met Jamie in 2006, and they fell completely head over heels in love. They dated exclusively, becoming best friends while he studied for his nursing degree at Tarleton State University. There, in 2010, Elijah graduated, and the two married the following summer in 2011. They became proud parents in 2015 to a baby girl named Aubrey and were blessed with a second child, another baby girl named Hannah, in 2016. Elijah loved being a dad and spending time with his girls. Jamie told People magazine that he would learn their gymnastics routines. He would make a fool of himself, and he would do anything just to see his family smile. He was a strong and dedicated firefighter who had recently received a promotion at work. He took care of his family as well as himself, dedicating time to exercise and CrossFit. He was also a particularly cautious person, and while the couple had been in Mexico multiple times, they had never left the resort on their vacations. Elijah wasn't a thrill seeker or interested in exploring any ocean excursions. He was the kind of guy that just wanted to wind down and relax by the pool. When Jamie wakes up before 4 the next morning, she is alone in her bed. Elijah isn't anywhere in the room. She's waking up in a foreign country without her husband on what should have been an amazing 10th anniversary holiday. But instead, her nightmare is just about to begin. But at first, Jamie's not too worried. She knows that her husband keeps long hours, and to be honest, it's not abnormal for Jamie to wake up alone. Elijah worked 24-hour shifts as a firefighter. He was a capable, responsible man who would have never left the resort without her. They had made several friends at the pool the day before, and Jamie wondered if Elijah met up with some of them and just fell asleep on their couch. She knows that he doesn't have a phone, so she can't call him. Elijah had left his cell phone in a cab on the way to the airport the previous day, and so she had no way to reach him or even check his location. Jamie wanders the halls of the resort, checking for him in common areas, and she also posts a message on the private Facebook page that she joined specifically for hotel guests. By 5 a.m., Jamie was starting to get more worried, and she alerted Royalton security. She checked the pool, she checked the beach and every floor of the building, and Elijah hadn't been there. Again, he was a cautious person, and she didn't think that he would have left the resort ever, let alone by himself without telling her. Maybe he's still asleep somewhere, but something doesn't feel right. So she asked hotel staff for help and asks them to contact the police or authorities for additional help. But by 8:30, Elijah still had not been found, and since no outside help had arrived to assist in the search, Jamie insisted that they bring in the Mexican police. She was starting to worry that something had happened to her husband, and she wanted to help him as fast as she could. But there was no sense of urgency with the Mexican police either. Finally, 2 hours later, a Royalton Chic staff member rode with Jamie to the local police station. First, police officers take Jamie's statement before showing her a picture of Elijah's driver's license. It's one of the few things that he had with him when she saw him last, and Jamie realizes that the Mexican authorities knew a lot more than she did. They knew where Elijah was that whole time. It's why they haven't been searching the grounds at the Royalton Chic for him, and why there was no sense of emergency in their response. Because her husband had already been found dead hours beforehand, discovered by a gardener arriving for work at 7 a.m. Elijah had been found protruding from a tiny window of an employee bathroom at the Sunset Royal Beach Resort next door to where they were staying. The tiny bathroom was located conspicuously behind the stage of an outdoor theater where guests had gathered earlier that evening for a show. The top half of Elijah's body, his head, shoulders, and arms, were sticking out of the small square opening in a nondescript wall near to the ground, while his feet were dangling inside the locked bathroom. Elijah's death stunned Jamie. "I was shaking," she told People magazine, saying, "I crumpled to the ground, just crying. I was screaming. I was terrified. I didn't know what to do. Now, all alone in Mexico, she was facing the loss of her significant other and dealing with what will turn out to be probably the most complicated and confusing time of her life. There are just so many questions. What was Elijah doing trying to enter the small ground level window? It had been covered by a wooden panel, which had been removed with a crowbar. Why would Elijah have taken a crowbar to the window of a neighboring resort? It didn't make sense to Jamie. And you'll notice that even though we are here in Cancun, I'm not at the Sunset Royal Beach Resort to show you this window. And there are a few reasons for this, but the first is that this window is actually really difficult to get to. You can get there from the beach, but you would have to walk up a narrow, fenced-off path, scale a number of large rocks, and then descend them somehow on the other side to a small grassy landing where the window and bathroom are. Alternatively, you can get there by walking first through the street entrance of the Sunset Royal, sneaking past security, skirting around the children's playground, and again, climbing up into a rocky area clearly not meant for guests or visitors. Inside Edition's chief investigative correspondent Lisa Guerrero called this route, frankly, almost impossible to imagine, before she was escorted off the Sunset Royal Beach Resort grounds by security guards. Now, I'm not interested in breaking the rules or being escorted out of any resorts. When I considered my options, it seemed like the best above-board way to get footage of that window would be to stay at the Sunset Royal Beach Resort itself. But as I read more about this case, that really became a non-option for me too. And I'll get into this more later, but neither resort, the Royalton Chic or the Sunset Royal, were particularly helpful to Jamie in her time of need. It didn't seem right trying to sneak onto these properties to film, nor did it feel right to give them any money for that privilege. Ultimately, I recorded this sunrise beach walk, which was as beautiful as Elijah's story is tragic. Back at the station, Jamie faced numerous obstacles in her quest to get answers about her husband's death. Despite her pleas, Mexican authorities denied her access to Elijah's body, allowing her only to view images of his corpse on a computer screen. Even these images did not come easily or cheaply. For each picture of her dead husband that she was allowed to view, Jamie was required to bribe Mexican authorities with $100. That's right, she paid out $500 just to see proof that her missing husband was in fact dead. She paid an additional $100 to take a single picture of one of these images with her cell phone. While this practice of emotional extortion is undoubtedly horrific, officials cited the non-natural cause of Elijah's death as their reason for withholding access to his body. And a detective told Jamie that his death would be labeled as a murder without suspect on his death certificate. But this was quickly contradicted later that same afternoon when another official told her that there was no foul play, explaining that Elijah was simply trying to climb out of a restroom window, got stuck, and suffocated there. There is no explanation for how or why Elijah was in that isolated staff bathroom to begin with. Jamie was just baffled, saying, "I was already confused because they were saying there's no foul play, but then it's murder without suspect and he's in a window," Jamie said. None of it made any sense. Elijah had been found with his wallet on him. His driver's license, credit cards, and other IDs were all there, but an estimated $100 in cash was gone. The Mexican Directorate of Expert Services performed an autopsy and determined that Elijah had died at 5 a.m. that morning, as Jamie had wandered the halls looking for him next door. They ruled his cause of death as mechanical asphyxia due to thoracic abdominal compression, meaning that he ran out of air trying to breathe while caught, dangling in the 18-inch opening. Stunned and saddened, Jamie considers bringing Elijah's body back to Texas for an independent autopsy, but is told that doing so will delay its release by an additional week. Already, she's wishing she were back home, in Texas with her daughters and her family, where life is familiar and calm. Elijah had wanted to be cremated, so she arranges for that to be completed locally, in Cancun. Several days later, Elijah's body arrived at the funeral home, and finally, Jamie was allowed to see her husband in person. Some of her family had flown down to Mexico to support her, and they went with Jamie to the funeral home. She views Elijah's body with his stepfather, David, and they are shocked by the state he is in. Previously, Jamie had been told that Elijah's bruising was on his abdomen, and then she had only been allowed to see the images police chose for her to view. Now she can see the full extent of his injuries. He is bruised and cut from head to toe. David Uski, Elijah's stepfather, said, quote, "You don't get that kind of bruising by climbing into a window." The bruises show that Elijah's experience and death was horrific and traumatic. Jamie is not a medical or forensics expert. She's in education. But her father-in-law David was an EMT, and he believed that the bruising and trauma appeared more extensive than one would expect, and that some of the bruises seemed oddly placed for the window explanation that they were given. How does one get bruises on their inner thighs climbing into a window? Or cut across the forehead? Again, none of it made any sense. Together, Jamie and David painstakingly document Elijah's bruises and wounds, moving and positioning his body to take their own photos, which they shared with the public via the Daily Mail. Post-mortem images are not something I would normally share with you, my audience, but given that the family has released them specifically to support their inquest, I decided to show them here now with warning. This is your chance to look away or skip to the next chapter. With the release of these photos, Elijah's stepfather said, quote, "I think he was beaten to death and that they tried to hide the body, dragged him back there, and stuffed him into the hole." The family was beginning to second-guess their decision to have Elijah cremated, but already those arrangements had been made. Back at the Royalton Chic Resort, Jamie and her family pled with staff to share any video surveillance footage from the night of Elijah's tragic death. The resort was equipped with numerous cameras, and they hoped that one might provide answers, if not important clues, to what happened to Elijah that night. But a staff member with the Royalton Chic said that she couldn't give the Snow family any footage and wouldn't put them in touch with anyone at the Sunset Royal Beach Resort. So they reached out to the U.S. consulate in Mexico for help. But the consulate's official view was that the Mexican authorities were doing a sufficient investigation and that outside assistance from the FBI wasn't necessary. Devastated but undeterred, the Snows returned to the United States, where they continued to seek answers. They contacted many various officials in Mexico and hired a local Cancun attorney, who successfully obtained several crime scene photos. And while it took 9 months, the Snows did eventually get to see some video surveillance footage of Elijah's last evening alive. In a heartbreaking sequence of events, the footage revealed that Elijah entered the Royalton Chic elevator lobby only moments after Jamie had gotten into her elevator after leaving the bar that evening. Clearly intoxicated, Elijah stumbles into frame just as Jamie's elevator departs. Next, he presses the elevator call button before, inexplicably, walking directly to a nearby stairwell, as if he had no time to wait for an elevator to arrive. It is the last time he is captured on film alive. Despite cameras plainly visible at the entrances and exits of the resort and throughout all common areas of the hotel, no other video of Elijah was found after these moments. But the footage had been recorded more than 7 hours before his estimated time of death. What happened to Elijah in that time? Where did he go and why? I mean, it looks as if he was trying to join Jamie back at their room immediately after she left. If he didn't go back to his room via those stairs, where did he go? What happened? In 2021, Cancun was still under COVID regulations, and per these rules, all of the bars closed at 11 p.m. So even if he had at some point changed his mind and decided to get yet another drink, why didn't the camera at the bottom of the stairs capture his return and exit from the stairwell, or his descent from those elevators? The Snow family is told that the cameras at the Sunset Royal Beach resort next door weren't working. In an interview with the Daily Mail, David Barcenas, the general manager at the Sunset Royal Beach, said that he believes that there was no crime, describing Elijah's death as a freak accident involving a drunk man who snuck on to the property. He said, quote, "We don't know how he arrived there. I think he was walking in from the beach. We think he was drunk. I don't know if he was climbing in, went backwards. We have the same questions everyone has." Which is honestly such a crass response from someone who was unable to assist in the case because their resort's entire video surveillance system was down. These are nice, expensive hotels and spas. It is so baffling to me that somehow not only did no cameras capture Elijah's movements that night, but no one saw or heard anything. Heavily intoxicated individuals are typically neither quiet nor stealthy. The toxicology report did show that Elijah had consumed alcohol and did not find any other drugs in his system. It's unclear to me what extent the staff at either resort were interviewed. Authorities insisted that there were no signs of foul play on the scene, reporting simply that Elijah became trapped as he tried to enter the window and found that he could not place his feet on the ground, giving him no support point to release himself from the opening. But the Snow family finds this hard to believe. Elijah could touch the ground with his hands, and as a fit firefighter with more than 8 years' experience, shouldn't have had any trouble crawling through a window if he wanted to. There's one thing I know for certain. This was not an accident, Jamie told the Daily Mail in response to General Manager David Barcenas' comment. None of his family can imagine why Elijah would sneak into a neighboring hotel, locate a bathroom window in a dark, secluded area, decide to rip off the wood nailed over it, and attempt to climb through the tiny window. It's totally out of character. And without his iPhone, Elijah was without even a flashlight to navigate in the dark. His stepfather, David Uski, wondered if Elijah was targeted for his missing cash. Did he just take a walk on the beach and two guys confronted him? David asked. Maybe they didn't mean to kill him, but they did. As a newly single working mom, Jamie is grappling with the challenges of raising her 2 daughters alone. With minimal life insurance to fall back on, she's also facing the daunting task of managing family finances on a single salary. Additionally, the emotional toll she faces is immense, having turned her life upside down. In a bid for justice, Jamie recently took legal action by suing Let's Go on Vacay, the travel agency that facilitated their stay at the Royalton Chic Resort, along with the resort itself and its parent companies. The wrongful death lawsuit seeks over $1 million in damages. Allegations include negligence in serving excessive alcohol, leading to tragic consequences, According to the suit, quote, as the day wore on, hotel bartenders poured, served, and encouraged most guests to consume hard liquor shots that were handed out at will without regard to guest safety. In many instances, the hotel bartender not only served these shots, but encouraged the patrons to become extremely intoxicated. The suit also alleges that the defendants had inadequate safety measures, citing that many of the resort's video cameras were not in working order, incapable of providing protection or information that may have been integral to solving this tragic case. Additionally, the suit states that the Snows had been misled about the safety of Cancun in general, having been told that it was safer than Paris or Las Vegas, all while the local police department reported nearly 5,500 violent crimes in 2021 alone. While Cancun's homicide statistics certainly don't make it a safer destination than Paris or Las Vegas, in 2021, it had a similar homicide rate to Memphis, Tennessee, and a considerably lower rate than New Orleans and numerous other Mexican cities. A GoFundMe was started by Elijah's family to assist Jamie and her daughters with their financial needs, as well as funding a continued investigation surrounding the circumstances of Elijah's untimely death. It reads in part, we humbly ask that you help in any way you can. Any help you can give is appreciated, whether it's financial or just sharing the story in an effort to bring justice for Elijah and his family. I'm putting the link to this GoFundMe in the description of the video so that you can check it out for yourself. Mexican authorities have closed this case, though the Snows disagree with their conclusion. And I understand why. The lack of video evidence, the location of the bruises and cuts, the misinformation and bribery at the police station. It all feels wrong, and it all feels suspicious. Either murder or misadventure, one thing is for sure. Jamie seeks to share her story and has worked tirelessly to further spread the news of Elijah's life and death. She's appeared on Dr. Phil, worked with various media groups and news stations to bring awareness to the case. She wants people to know what happened, and she seeks accountability from the companies involved. Only time will tell what, if any, new information is released by her lawsuit. I'm hoping that there's still more to learn about the confusing mystery of Elijah Snow.